Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Redman and welcome to Pastor's Library. This is the channel where we discuss theology books and we discuss books that might be on a reading list for a seminary course, for a bachelor's or master's degree in biblical theology or biblical studies, or we just discuss books that have caught someone's interest and might just spike yours too. So today we're going to do a summary of my favourite one-volume commentaries. So we're talking about a single book coming in one volume that is a commentary on the whole Bible. Now, it's a big thing to ask of any particular commentary. We've looked at a couple of others recently, and I just want to summarise what I've got in my library, which isn't a massive amount, and that's really because I am a one volume per book commentary, really. I have more commentaries on the book of Job than I can mention to you. It's just a question of one volume for one book. In fact, sometimes they go to 3 volumes on one book, so it is a thing. And just to say, in general, I do talk to you about books that are quotable in essays, which is normally, in most cases, 30 years. So usually we're talking about modern commentaries, purely because if you're wanting to get a good degree, a good mark in your essay, you will probably need to quote from them. And particularly as there are some fantastic commentators writing today, some fantastic theologians. We have a plethora of them. In fact, this has probably got to have been the best time to be alive to have access to good theologians. So I think it's always worth knowing that when you're quoting from the most recent and the best, in general, they will refer back to the older ones that we are all thinking of as well. So it usually works out. And just to say, I am not from a reformed background. I'm from a free will theist background. I'm not particularly banging on from a particular denominational viewpoint. I am very eclectic in my reading. I often think if I can't read somebody that I really do disagree with, that I don't probably deserve to believe as strongly as I do. So I may not find them as my favourite, but I will consult them from time to time. And of course, if you are doing essays, then of course it's quite important that you show the other side or an alternative viewpoint. So I'm going to start with a couple of what are fairly old one-volume commentaries. This one came out in 1991. Its official title is the Marshall Pickering commentary on the NIV. It's edited by someone called Walter Elwell. It came out in 1991. It's got 1,230 pages. And this actually has quite an impressive range of contributors. Maybe not all leading lights, but there are some really good ones in here. So it's a very old commentary I've had, and it's okay. I don't know if there's an up-to-date version of this, but this one certainly had a place. The other one that I want to say almost nothing about is the New Bible Commentary, 21st Century Edition by IVP. And this one has got consulting editors of D.A. Carson, R.T. France, J.A. Motger and G.J. Wenham. What a fabulous list of top quality authors, people who have contributed to the theology that we all share and love. And it is a very, very worthwhile commentary. Now, out in 2002, it's still quotable. It's 1,455 pages. It's a nice hardback again with a slipcover. But as much as this has got some good contributors, some good editors, I wouldn't put his up there as one that I would particularly recommend right now. But if you've got it and it's all you have, dip into it. It's got a wealth of experience. This one is a little bit more up to date and worthwhile. Came out in 2006, 1,612 pages. It's edited by someone called Adiemo, and he's the general editor. And Rick Warren calls this a monumental work. But this is a one-volume commentary based on an African cultural awareness. It's got viewpoints from people who've either worked in Africa for a long time or who have been born and grown up in Africa. And this is definitely worthwhile. If, like me, you lead a church which is multinational, we have a number of African people from different parts of Africa in our congregation. I got this just so that I could see what the viewpoint was in many places. Now, what I would say about this, which is why it's so low down my list, is that this is quite deterministic in its worldview. So by deterministic, what I'm meaning is this has the view that all things happen because it's the will of God in general, and that if something happens to you, it was God's will, that type of thing, which is clearly non-biblical as far as I'm concerned. It's sort of, it drips through the context. There's a lot of things in here that are worthwhile, but you've got to sort of sieve them through something small that will take out the deterministic bits, which, to be fair, I've had to do that all my life. So this is not that difficult for me. But I wouldn't say either that this was that eye-opening, other than it does cast a light on some African cultures. Do, of course, remember that it is African cultures. It doesn't mean that all Africans believe like that. This one is remarkably good. Now, I had this recommended to me by a subscriber, and this came out in 2020. It's 934 pages, and this is the Wesley one-volume commentary. So it's printed by Abingdon. That gives you a bit of a clue about it. The editors are Kenneth J. Collins and Robert W. Wall. Both of these are good people who have written other things and have got their name out there. And I have to say, I was really engaged with this. I do think it has an awful lot to offer, particularly if you come from a Wesleyan background, a free will theist background. This definitely has something to say and shouldn't be ignored. Now, this is one I've just recently done a video on. I had it a long time. It's 2010, 1,068 pages. The main editors are Beverly Roberts Gavent and David Peterson, again, both of whom have contributed very successfully to the range of theological work that's out there. In fact, it's got 80 contributors, including the two general editors. And whereas this replaces a 1971 Interpreters one-volume commentary, this being the new Interpreters Bible one-volume commentary, this is really good. And if I was reaching for a one-volume commentary right now, this is definitely one I would look for and engage with. I find it to be really good. Again, these 80 contributors are all great people. So many of the names you will know. This is an excellent piece of work. But it also has a section on the Apocrypha. And whereas for many of us that may not seem to be Bible, and I'm not suggesting for one moment it is literature that influenced the early apostles. And if you question that, just read Jude and 2 Peter, and you will really see how 1 Enoch, Jubilees are at least impacting their writings. So ultimately, sometimes commentaries on the Apocrypha are helpful. Now, I showed you the African one-volume commentary, which I've never really got very excited about, but this is its sister volume called the South Asia Bible Commentary. This was published in 2015. It's 1,807 pages. This has got some names on it which may well not be known to many of you, but it has a foreword by Christopher J.H. Wright. The general editor is Brian Wintle, and the name that caught my eye was Finney Phillip, is one of the New Testament editors. And Finney Phillip wrote a terribly expensive book when I was doing my master's degree that I borrowed as long as I could before I gave it back to the library. And it was very influential in some of the essays I wrote. And so I was very interested to see what his influence was on this volume. Now, I would say to you, again, this is the same story as the African one, written by people who largely have been out there for a long time, ministering in the culture, learnt the culture, or have grown up in the culture and pastoring out there or studying or adding to the literature whilst they're out there. And I have to say, I found this much more helpful to me as a white British person. I found that I really saw through a different set of eyes when I was reading it. Although, of course, it's multiple sets of eyes because the contributions are quite wide. And I have to say that of the two volumes, this one I think is really good. And again, we don't have an awful lot of South Asian people who pass through our doors, but we do get the odd couple. And it is definitely helpful to me to just see a little bit through their eyes. So again, you sort of would really want to be able to do that to buy one of these. But I can heartily endorse it, and I think it's good. This I've recently acquired and reviewed, and I think this is excellent. This is the NIV application commentary on the Bible. If I remember reviewing it, I said there are 90 million words in the NIVAC range of commentaries. This has compacted them down to just over 1 million. So it's quite a job to edit down to that. And realistically, that takes a lot of work. And I think that this has taken quite a number of years to put together. Now, what I would say about this is, if you're a pastor, if you're a preacher, this is without doubt one of the very, very best volumes you can have. Because this commentary is made with the structure introduction, book outline, original meaning, and then application. And what they have done with this is they've updated the applications in general so that they no longer give you examples about the dial-up internet or floppy disks. But this is a very, very helpful source of application. And if you are continually trying to produce messages which need an application, then what I would say to you is this is probably almost a default for anyone who is in that line of work. Is this the ideal one for theological studies? Only for the basis of theological studies, to start you off. This is what you would get after a study Bible when you're looking for something that's a bit more. And I seriously will rave about this because I think it's very, very good. However, do I think this is my one favourite one Bible volume, one volume commentary? Let me go on to my final two, and we may come back to that. When I was at Bible college, the question came up, what one volume Bible commentary would you recommend? And they all said, none. We would recommend that you get a commentary on whichever book you're studying at the time. And I remember my first essay was from the book of Acts, I think. And so I went out and I bought a commentary on the book of Acts. And then I bought another one. And I worked like that. But when I collared one of the lecturers, or the senior lecturer really, and I said to him, look, there must be a one-volume commentary that you like. He said, well, if I had to have one, I would have the Jerome. And I had no idea what the Jerome was. I'd never seen or heard of it. But I sent off for the second revised version, the new Jerome Bible commentary. And I have to say, besides the fact that even all these years later, it has a very funny smell about it, I have found that to be really useful because it gives a very conservative, almost evangelical view of the scriptures. And even though the Jerome series are Roman Catholic, it is absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to get back to that in a moment. But in 2022, they've launched the Jerome Biblical Commentary for the 21st century. So this is the third edition. And it looks brilliant. Again, nice hardcover with a slip cover on top of it. Very nice coloured blue, attractive to the eye. 2,196 pages. This will go literally through the scriptures, book by book, and give you an outline and a glance on what the theologian thinks the meaning is. And because it's Roman Catholic, it also includes the Apocrypha. Now, please, if you come from a background where you have been brought up very anti-Catholic, I understand that. I come from a classical Pentecostal upbringing, and I think that the number of people I heard tell me that the Antichrist was going to be the Pope, I probably would lose all count of references to things like that. But really, as much as I am grateful for the Reformation, and I am grateful for what we know now, and I'm grateful for the way that the church has lurched from crisis to crisis and has got itself into a better place in many respects than it was, certainly when the Reformation happened. I am very loath to speak against things because of their source. For example, I was given a book by Pope Benedict, written in his pre-Pope name, which he preferred to write in his pre-Pope name because it was saying, I'm not claiming that I'm infallible by writing in my papal title. And I think that was good. And I read these 3 books he wrote about Jesus. And you know what? I think that they are amongst some of the top books of that generation that were written about Jesus. So, you just can't dismiss things because they've got Catholic influence. I often recommend people the Catholic Biblical Quarterly as a great journal. You will get people from all Christian backgrounds submitting to that journal, and it's truly great. All I'm saying is, give them a chance. Now, this has 4 editors: John Collins, Gina Hens-Piazza, Barbara Reed, and Donald Sr. Now, the truth is, Donald Sr. is the only one of those that I've really come across. Now, I got into this. I find it very worthwhile in lots of places, but in certain places, I find it a little liberal. And I wonder if the clue is in the title, in that this is for the 21st century. It has a foreword by Pope Francis, which, if you read it, is all right. And I just wonder if it's following the papal direction these days of being a little bit more liberal in terms of what they call sin. And I would suggest to you that whereas there is a lot in here that's very good, there are some places where I just simply can't agree. You're not having to look for things about Mary or the Eucharist. You need to look at things like sexual ethics. And I don't think this is quite as excellent. And so, whereas that book is definitely a worthwhile consideration, this is, I think, my best one-volume commentary. And this is the new Jerome Biblical Commentary, which is the second edition, so the edition before the new one. My version was printed in 2007. It's 1,483 pages. It's got the Apocrypha in. It's a very detailed one-volume commentary. But listen to the editorial team. Raymond E. Brown, Joseph A. Fitzmyer, Roland E. Murphy. Now look, if like me, you have bought books and read books that are written by them, not knowing that they were remotely Roman Catholic, and even when you read the book, you still didn't know they were Roman Catholic. I actually had a little bit of a tete-a-tete with someone once over Raymond E. Brown, who assured me the man wasn't Catholic because he believed as we did. And I agreed with him, but the fact is he was a Roman Catholic, and he had his professorship was at a Catholic seminary. So I do think that's a clue. Now, what I would say to you is this, is at this moment in time, this is still quotable. And I think that whereas this new version that I've recently got my hands on is sort of 500 pages bigger, I am not so sure that it actually has that many words, because the font size in this second edition is quite a lot smaller. And I would suggest that it might actually be only similar. But the third fully revised edition, which is what it says on the cover, I would suggest to you is not edited as well as by these three great men. If I was to go through my bookshelves and show you how many books I've got by Raymond E. Brown, and that I've got a significant number by Joseph Fitzmyer and Roland E. Murphy, these men wrote great theology. And, I don't agree with everything everybody writes. I really don't. But Raymond E. Brown was always a favourite. I've read some great books that he wrote. Raymond E. Brown is no longer with us. In fact, I'm not sure about the other two, frankly. But these men, men of God, great theologians, very, very conservative in the faith, very regarding the Word of God as being the Word of God. And if I had to depend on a one-volume commentary, I feel there is more in this than there is in the NIVAC. But the application is not in here. This is about meaning. This is about what Jesus was saying. This is about what the prophets were saying. And I really do think that this, if you were to get a copy secondhand, which I think you would have to do now, I think you would find this to be absolutely excellent, particularly if you got it for a good price. That new third volume, it cost me £69, which it really sticks in my throat that I've spent that much money on it, and it's a bit too liberal for my liking. I will get some use from it, but this is a fundamentally better product. It will give you greater levels of detail in your conservative theology, if that's what you have. And I would suggest to you, this is truly a brilliant work. So, my top two, the New Jerome and the NIVAC, they are up there because they offer two different points of view in a one-volume commentary. This one is the detail one. This one is the application one. And the truth is, we need both. So I'm not anticipating buying any more one-volume commentaries. I think that I've enough here to do a decent video. And I'm really, really happy with those two as my top two picks. But what I would suggest to you is make sure that when you're looking through one-volume commentaries, that you are just taking a stepping stone up from the study Bible. You know, your text Bible, study Bible, one-volume commentary, and then we go on to a much more detailed commentaries along the way. And I think that if you're following that pathway, it will help you. I really commend these two books in particular to you. I also think the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary is good. I also think the South Asia Bible Commentary, I would suggest, that's the four I would focus on. But for me, it's going to remain the New Jerome. It's what they recommended me when I was at Bible college under duress. And I would suggest to you, it still has an awful lot to offer. I hope you've liked that. If you have, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Please remember to comment below, to say something, ask a question, whatever it is. Give me an idea. And of course, subscribe and click on the bell if you haven't done already. It really does help the channel, and we're very, very grateful for all your support. I'm recording this in between Christmas and New Year, and I've got loads of plans for the early part of the next year. So keep tuning in to Pastor's Library, and I hope to see you there. Until the next time, bye!